stormy outside. It's basically just raining buckets. It's just cloudy and just so wintry. So that explains this outfit and why I'm sitting here filming a sit-down video on the weekend, because that's not something I typically like to do, but I just woke up from a 3-hour nap. It was so nice. Naya watched the boys while me and Ever napped, and Ever is still napping, so she's just right here next to me. Today I'm going to be filming a video about my NICU experience with my twin boys who are 2 years old. Just about our entire experience being in the NICU, having premature infants, and just the special things that come along with that and that specific journey. Just kind of the unfiltered details about the full experience of having a child in the NICU and having a premature infant, because there are a lot of things people don't maybe like to talk about, and just like I don't see that many videos about preemies that much, so I thought I would just do like a full in-depth look at preemies. I filmed about being 16 and pregnant with twins and that birth and that delivery, but I didn't really ever talk about the experience being in the NICU or specific details with that. Now I'm going to be talking about what it was like having twins that were a pound when they were born. I won't go back too much to the birth since I did a whole video on that, but in short, they had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome from being identical twins, having a single placenta that they shared between the both of them. They had 2 separate sacs but a shared placenta, so they had an unequal distribution of nutrients. My baby B, Coda, did not receive as much as K Kai, so therefore he has arthrogryposis that isn't due to prematurity. So I never knew that I was going to have them at 27 weeks. I did go into a natural labor from body was going into a kind of shock from Coda dying, so I just went into labor from him being in such bad shape in the womb. I went into labor at 27 weeks. I was helicoptered over to Oahu before they had checked me, and then I was 5 centimeters dilated by the time I got to Oahu. I gave birth from the time I got to Oahu and was at 5 centimeters within about 5 hours of that. And when I gave birth, I had an emergency C-section with an epidural that was failed and didn't work for me, so I felt it, so they had to put me to sleep. So then I was horse tranquilized and had all these other medications. When I woke up, I was obviously no longer with my babies. They had been taken from me and were in the NICU, and I couldn't go see them right away either. So this was really a difficult experience. First off, I didn't know that this was going to happen, so to just have them taken from me was like so traumatic and just a hard thing. And 2, I didn't really know how they were. I woke up and I didn't know their state, and I was just concerned and full of fear right from when I had woken up from my C-section. So they had been transported to the NICU, and Naya had walked with them after the surgery to the NICU. Basically, they were placed in plastic, saran wrap type material after they were born to prevent from bacteria, infections, things like that. Preemies are a lot more sensitive, a lot more able to catch colds, viruses, things like that. So they put them in the plastic saran wrap and brought them down to the NICU. Now, I didn't go down there until probably 6 hours later, and I begged and begged to go down there. I went down there and was in a ton of shock, for sure, seeing my 1-pound babies. I was told they were 1 pound 4 ounces and 1 pound 12 ounces. Basically, the first thing they told me is that the first 48 hours are the most crucial. So if your baby doesn't pass, they'll say they have a good chance of survival. People think not a lot of people have preemies, but actually 1 in 10 babies is a preemie. I don't know, that doesn't mean micro preemie, so not 1 in 10 people having micro preemies, I don't think. But anyways, so I saw my twin boys and I was definitely like in shock, because I remember thinking, well, they look small and they look weak, but they don't look that unhealthy. Like, they look pretty okay. Now looking back, I don't have many pictures from this time because I was so in shock and sad, and I felt like this weird feeling I've never felt before throughout this time, where I just didn't want to take photos. It was weird. It was like, these were my babies. Of course I felt proud of them. My baby's great and everything, but I just couldn't bring myself to take a picture. I don't know. I had family taking pictures, not me, because it made me too upset. So the first nights away from my babies were so hard. So hard. Some of the hardest nights in my life. I remember just having that question mark next to their future and going to bed at night, like not knowing what would happen or if something would happen. I would have bad dreams. I think I was quickly falling into postpartum depression around this point. Like it just was kind of inevitable for me personally. I'm not saying that everybody who has a premature infant, it's inevitable to get postpartum depression, but I would say that that did happen to me. It wasn't that I was depressed and stuff all the time. I just there was a difference in how I was functioning, I think. Like in my mentality, everything was just a little bit altered at this time when the hormones were changing and everything was happening after I gave birth and just setting into my new life and being a teen and just all the different aspects of that, along with the prematurity, the unknown future, and just the stress of the situation. I never got any medical help for my postpartum depression or anything like that. It wasn't ever at a point where I felt like I needed any assistance with it, but there was a difference to how I felt a year postpartum versus a week postpartum. So we stayed in a hotel and we visited our boys every single day. Both of us went every single day, from the moment that you could go in the morning to the moment that it closed at night. We went from shift change to shift change. So that was like 7:30 in the morning and 7:30 at night. And we would basically be at the hospital all day. Just would be with our babies, holding them and doing things like that. Now I couldn't hold my boys until they were 4 days old. Really a hard thing. Truly difficult. I could really only just barely change their diapers, and still at that they were monitoring me, watching me do these things, and I didn't really feel comfortable with it. The first few weeks were just like unknown vibes. They said you're going to be in here at least until your due date, having such micro preemies. They might need blood transfusions. They could have brain bleeds. They could have all these sorts of issues. So it was just a matter of time before things became revealed, like before we figured out if they had any issues or not. So that's why the first few weeks were the most scary, is because it's just a waiting game, seeing if something was going to pop up. Within this time, they told us there was a very good chance that they could have brain bleeds just from a scary entrance into the world and just being premature. That's a very big concern. So they perform ultrasounds on the head. When the first check came around, I was so scared because they had kind of made me feel like they were going to have bleeds. So I was really relieved when they didn't. They never had any brain bleeds. They say that the brain bleeds can be a big contributor to cerebral palsy and just having cerebral palsy. So I was concerned for that possibility. Now, what did happen was they found that Coda had a calcification in his liver, and this goes back to the twin-to-twin transfusion in the womb and how he wasn't getting the nutrients and stuff to sustain his full body. So the calcification was coming from his liver actually shutting down. Now this calcification measured very small, like it was like a few millimeters, the calcification, which isn't big, but for a 1 pound baby it's kind of big, or it can be concerning. So they monitored it and it actually grew within a few weeks. So we were really scared about this calcifying liver. They didn't really know what it meant. They thought it could be some other disorder that he could be suffering with. So we had a geneticist come in and all these different things for this calcification mixed with his arms. We were figuring if they were connected or not. And luckily never were. Also, Coda one time, his blood count got really low, so they had to give him a blood transfusion. Now luckily he only had to get 1 blood transfusion. Kai never had to get any. We did also endure hard viruses in there, which may not be as difficult for you and I, but for a preemie, a virus can be, detrimental for sure. We battled those. Those were always scary. When you are first starting in the NICU, you have a meeting with your doctors and they kind of just, let you know what you need to expect for caring for your child and everything like that. And when we had our meeting, our doctor left me completely devastated, basically. I mean, I was told that my kids will probably never be Olympic athletes. They will probably never even be able to run like a normal kid. Sports are going to be difficult. They probably can't be in competitive sports. They will probably have horrible vision from their preemie experience and, won't be able to do normal things. Essentially, that was what they were trying to feed me, is that my children weren't normal. Now that they've been born premature, this is a different path. And they're going to be different no matter what. Now, I don't think this was the right way to explain the situation because in my case, it wasn't the truth. I know that that is the case so many times, that that prematurity does have detrimental effects on children. And it's horrible, it's devastating. In my case, that didn't happen. So to be fed those things, I was constantly, so sure that that was the future. The power of like your thoughts, and that staying positive and optimistic and open to miracles is the way to be. Open to God's power, open to higher power, like helping you through a situation. So I just kind of gave it all up to God and was like, well, this is my path. I'm on this path. I'm on this journey. I'm committed to it. I'm going to do the best I can with whatever I'm thrown. That was just my energy with it, but I was so devastated when I was told these things. These things aren't true, and my kids are run like everybody else, but I thought that was interesting that she just wanted to tell me all these horrible things right from the get-go. So other things that we endured. Changing diapers was scary in the beginning. I was scared. I mean, the size of the diaper was like a Band-Aid, and I was so scared to change that diaper. I made Naya do it for so long until I felt comfortable. If you lift the legs too high, you can like activate a brain bleed, like all these different things that you just have to be careful about. Coda has scars to this day from how many pricks he got in the NICU. He has scars from his PICC line in his belly button. He has scars on his wrists, on his legs. One time, they tightened his security band on his ankle, which is this band that they use because, like, if any baby gets taken out of this specific unit, the alarm goes off and, like, makes the whole hospital go off. Coda's was pulled too tight around his ankle, and I just remember them apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry we tied it too tight. So sorry. It looks like there's a mark there. We were just like, whatever, there's a mark there right now, but he still has a really bad scar from that, and now I get why they were so apologetic, because he has a mark on his skin from security bracelet. Like, he has a scar that he has to live with for the rest of his life wrapped around his ankle because of the security bracelet. We spent many holidays in the NICU. We spent Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas all in the NICU by ourselves, me and Naya. We ate meals in the hospital on these days. We weren't gonna not be with our babies on Christmas. I also forgot to mention that we were helicoptered to another island because they have better medical care and a better NICU. So we were away from our family during this entire period of time, 3 months, which it was. We ended up being able to go home on our due date. As far as our experience in the NICU, those are the majority of the things that we had to endure. We had constant weight losses and just these things that were concerning. It was always like a new day, a new thing to be scared about, kind of. They always made it through certain things that they had to go through in there. Even if they were difficult at the time, they pulled through. Now, when we were finally able to go home, the boys were around 6.5 pounds each. Kei-Kai got to go home 2 weeks before, so we stayed in a hotel with Kei-Kai. I would pump milk, and Naya would feed Kei-Kai at home, and I would go and feed Coda too. So I just had a lot of milk at this time. I was constantly pumping. The boys were never able to breastfeed. Now, this is one of the saddest, like, things of my entire life, honestly. I know it doesn't matter to so many people if you breastfeed or bottle feed. It doesn't matter. I mean, your baby's getting fed either way. Neither of it matters. I don't judge it all. But me personally, I'm a breastfeeding kind of gal. I always wanted to breastfeed my children. Like, I always looked forward to that bond and that connection that you have with your babies when you breastfeed. And so that was what I wanted to do so badly for my twins. I wanted to tandem feed them, and I thought it'd be the coolest thing ever, right? Now, I tried and tried and tried. I tried from 32 weeks to breastfeed them until they were probably 6 months old. I tried to breastfeed them, and I always had to pump afterward. They never latched on right. They could never transfer the milk properly. So this led to me being so exhausted after 6 months of waking up in the middle of the night, breastfeeding them, pumping them, breastfeeding them, pumping them, trying to make it work, trying to feed them, being scared about my preemies gaining weight and all these things. I finally just switched to pumping milk for them. So I pumped milk until they were a year old. And yeah, but I would have to say the hardest thing of our entire preemie experience has to do with feeding and just how my boys were with feeding. They had acid reflux as well as just other stomach problems. They were sensitive, very sensitive. Their stomachs hurt a lot of the time. A lot of the first 6 months of their life was spent fussy and having to be walked around and patted and held because they were so fussy. We would constantly hear them choke on what was coming back up in their throat. They couldn't lay flat. They had to always be perpendicular. If they laid flat, they would completely choke on their stuff and have a Brady. You don't know what a Brady is? It's basically when your heart like stops for a period of time. That's essentially what it is in little words. So they would choke and their heart would stop and they would turn a little bit blue and I would have to like stimulate them, and it was just a very hard time. And I remember getting even sadder when I came home from the NICU because I felt like I had lost all that support of like the nurses and everything like that, and then I was just left on my own to care for these preemies, which I was. This was just a lot. Being a 17-year-old, I was overwhelmed and I was sad sometimes just about that this was what happened to me. I was like, why did this happen to me? This was just like hard for me to come to terms with. A day came where I no longer felt sad about it anymore, and a day came where the boys were no longer spitting up anymore, and a day came where I had happy, bubbly little baby puffs who were no longer upset. That's good. But yeah, as far as the care at home, there were so much issues just with feeding and not being able to gain weight, and you know, doctors telling me how much I needed to go on formula. Well, basically, my breast milk would never be enough, but I wanted to give them breast milk. I added some organic formula to my milk. So I was still able to give them milk, but I just fortified it with my organic formula. Now in the NICU, they did give them nicu with my breast milk. I didn't continue this when I went home. I fortified with organic formula to add more calories. This really helped them to gain weight. So my breast milk with the fortified organic German formula, which was called Anfangsmilch. It's from the brand Hip and Holly, or Holly and Hip formula from Germany. Is organic and the best formula. I would highly recommend it. I'd say that the hardest part of the preem journey was all of the unknowns and just enduring a very different journey. I mean, not everybody has to go through this, so it was hard to not have that many friends to talk to that have gone through something similar. Once you make it through something like that, something about how you feel is like Naya and I feel so strong now in a way, and just experienced. Like I feel like I have more knowledge and so much experience just from going through this one certain situation with having my premature twins. I'm grateful for it, even though I felt so sad about it for so long, but now all I have is to be grateful because not everybody's children make it out of the NICU in the same way that mine did. There's not really a reason for why they're so healthy. I mean, everyone told us that they were going to have some sort of issue from the prematurity. Is just everything to be grateful for, and just makes this whole situation a lot easier to talk about, a lot easier of a situation in general. But I just kind of want to bring awareness to prematurity and the fact that it is 1 in 10 births that are premature. Like there's all different fates for babies that are born premature, and some don't make it. I just can't imagine all the mamas that have gone through this, through a kind of experience like this. You're so strong and amazing, and you're doing a great job. This is kind of the summed up version of our entire NICU experience, and just a few of the different things we went through in the NICU, and how it was difficult caring for them afterwards. So I hope you liked this unfiltered, raw video about this experience. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more. Thank you so much for all your support, and we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye!